Hello and welcome back to our C1 Advanced English series. I'm Emma, and as always, I'm joined by Jake. Today we're tackling something rather sophisticated: stance markers and distancing language.
Hi everyone. Yeah, this is one of those topics that really separates intermediate learners from advanced speakers. When you read academic articles or listen to news analysts, you'll hear this kind of language constantly.
Exactly. And the reason it matters is quite simple. In English, especially in academic or professional contexts, we don't usually want to sound too direct or too certain about claims that aren't entirely ours.
Right. If I say, coffee is bad for you, that sounds like a personal opinion stated as fact. But if I say, it has been suggested that excessive coffee consumption may have negative effects, that's completely different.
It sounds measured, doesn't it? Objective, professional. That's exactly what stance markers do. They let you discuss ideas while keeping a comfortable distance from them.
And by the end of this lesson, you'll be able to do that yourself. So let's dive in.
Right. Let's start with the concept itself. A stance marker is a word or phrase that signals your attitude towards a piece of information. Are you certain? Doubtful? Reporting someone else's view?
Distancing is a specific type of stance. You're putting space between yourself and the claim. You're saying, I'm telling you this, but I'm not personally guaranteeing it's true.
We have 5 key expressions today. The first is, it is widely accepted. This means most people, or most experts, agree on something. You're presenting it as established knowledge.
The second is, it has been suggested. This is more tentative. Somebody, somewhere, has proposed this idea, but it isn't necessarily proven.
Then we have purportedly, a wonderful word. It means something is claimed to be true, but you're signaling slight doubt. You're not endorsing the claim.
Similar to that is ostensibly. This one means on the surface, or apparently, it's how something appears, though the reality might be different.
And finally, in theory. This phrase introduces the idea that something should work or be true logically, but practice might tell a different story.
Let's hear them all in action. Emma, why don't we have a conversation about a topic where these phrases naturally come up?
Lovely idea. Let's discuss remote work. There's so much research and opinion floating around. Perfect territory for distancing language.
So Emma, I've been reading a lot about remote work lately. What's your take on whether it actually makes people more productive?
Well, it is widely accepted that remote work offers greater flexibility, which most employees value enormously. However, the productivity question is far more complicated than companies often admit.
Interesting. I've seen studies that go both ways. It has been suggested that remote workers actually log more hours, but whether those hours are productive is another matter entirely.
Quite. And some companies that purportedly support flexible working actually monitor their employees more aggressively than they ever did in the office. It's a curious contradiction.
Yeah, I read about one firm that ostensibly offered total remote freedom, but in reality they tracked keyboard activity every 5 minutes. That's not freedom. That's surveillance with a friendlier name.
Precisely. And in theory, working from home should reduce stress because you eliminate the commute. But many people report feeling more anxious because the boundary between work and personal life dissolves.
That matches what I've experienced. It is widely accepted now that always-on culture is harmful, yet it has been suggested that remote work makes that problem significantly worse, not better.
And the leadership question is fascinating too. Many managers purportedly trust their teams, but their behavior reveals deep-seated anxiety about not being able to see their employees.
Right. Ostensibly progressive companies still expect instant replies to messages at all hours. In theory, the policy is flexible. In practice, it's anything but.
A perfect example of how reality and rhetoric often diverge. And notice, Jake, that entire conversation, neither of us made a single bold personal claim.
Exactly. We discussed strong opinions, controversial findings, even criticized companies, but every claim was carefully framed.
Let's pause and unpack what just happened. Listeners, did you notice how natural those phrases sounded? They weren't decorative, they were doing real work.
When I said, "It has been suggested," I was passing along an idea without taking ownership of it. The passive structure removes the agent. We don't say who suggested it, and that's deliberate.
That passive construction is crucial. It is widely accepted. It has been suggested. It is often claimed. These all use the same pattern. It, plus passive verb. Memorize that structure.
Then we have the adverbs, purportedly, and ostensibly. These slot into a sentence very flexibly. You can put them before the verb, or at the start of a clause.
For instance, the company purportedly supports remote work, or, purportedly, the company supports remote work. Both work beautifully.
And there's a subtle difference between purportedly and ostensibly that's worth highlighting. Purportedly suggests a claim that may not be accurate. Ostensibly suggests an appearance that hides a different reality.
Yes, ostensibly often pairs with a but clause that reveals the truth. Ostensibly a charity, but in fact a tax shelter. Lovely contrast.
And, in theory, that's the one I hear used most in everyday conversation, actually. It signals that something should logically be the case, but real life rarely cooperates.
Perfect summary. Now let's hear another dialogue using these tools, this time on a slightly different topic. Jake, you'll play a journalist interviewing me about a new educational study.
Emma, thanks for joining me. There's a new report out claiming that early reading instruction dramatically improves long-term academic outcomes. What's your reaction?
Well, it is widely accepted in educational circles that reading exposure during early childhood correlates with later success. However, the study you're referring to has some methodological issues.
Could you elaborate? The researchers purportedly used a sample of over 10,000 children across multiple countries.
They did, ostensibly. But on closer inspection, the children weren't matched for socioeconomic background, which is widely accepted as the single strongest predictor of academic outcomes.
So in theory, the study isolates the effect of early reading, but in practice it might be measuring something else entirely?
Exactly. It has been suggested by several critics that the correlation observed could be explained by household income alone. Reading instruction may simply be a marker of more privileged environments.
That's a serious concern. The headlines, of course, didn't mention any of this. Newspapers ostensibly report on research, but they often strip out the nuance.
Quite. And it has been suggested, and I tend to agree, that science journalism needs structural reform. In theory, peer review should catch these issues, but peer review itself has limitations.
One last question. The researchers purportedly received funding from a major publishing company that sells early reading curricula. Does that concern you?
Enormously. It is widely accepted that financial conflicts of interest must be disclosed transparently, and ostensibly this study did so. But the disclosure was buried in a footnote.
Wow. Well, thank you, Emma. This was clarifying, and a great example, listeners, of how stance markers let us critique strongly without ever sounding hostile or unprofessional.
Right. Let's review our 5 expressions one by one. First, it is widely accepted. Jake, give us a fresh example.
It is widely accepted that regular exercise improves mental health. Notice, I'm presenting this as common knowledge, not my personal claim.
Lovely. And, it is widely accepted, is excellent for opening academic essays. It establishes shared ground before you introduce your own argument.
Next, it has been suggested. Emma?
It has been suggested that artificial intelligence will transform the legal profession within a decade. Now, I'm not endorsing that prediction. I'm simply reporting that the idea exists.
Right. It has been suggested is more tentative than it is widely accepted. The first is a hypothesis, the second is closer to consensus.
Now, purportedly. Jake, an example?
The painting was purportedly created by a Renaissance master, but recent analysis suggests otherwise. So, purportedly is signaling, this is the claim, but I'm skeptical.
Perfect. And, ostensibly.
He moved abroad ostensibly for work, but really to escape his old life. So, ostensibly presents the surface explanation, while implying a deeper truth.
Beautifully done. And finally, in theory.
In theory, this software should integrate seamlessly with existing systems. In practice, well, I've spent 3 days troubleshooting it.
Ha. In theory, almost begs for a, but in practice, to follow it. They're a natural pair.
Now let me try a sentence that mixes a couple of these. Emma, correct me if I get it wrong. The new tax policy ostensibly is fairer for low-income families.
Almost perfect, Jake, but the word order is slightly off. We'd more naturally say, the new tax policy is ostensibly fairer for low-income families. The adverb sits after the verb, is.
Ah, good catch. The new tax policy is ostensibly fairer for low-income families, but it has been suggested that wealthy households will actually benefit more.
Excellent. Let me try one. It is widely suggested that meditation reduces anxiety.
Small issue, Emma. We say, it is widely accepted, or, it has been suggested, but not usually, it is widely suggested. The collocation isn't quite natural.
Quite right. I was testing you, of course. Listeners, that's an important point. These phrases are fixed collocations. Don't mix and match the pieces randomly.
So memorize them as whole units. It is widely accepted. It has been suggested. Treat them like single words.
And one final tip. Don't overuse them. If every sentence in your essay starts with, it has been suggested, the writing becomes cluttered. Use them strategically, where you genuinely want distance from a claim.
Great advice. Sophistication isn't about packing every fancy phrase into a paragraph. It's about choosing the right tool at the right moment.
Well said. So that's our lesson on stance markers and distancing. You've now got 5 powerful expressions to make your English sound more measured, more objective, and more authoritative.
Practice by reading a news article and rewriting some sentences using today's phrases. You'll be amazed at how much more sophisticated your writing sounds.
In our next lesson, C107, we'll be exploring nominalization, the art of turning verbs and adjectives into nouns to make your writing denser and more academic. It's a real game changer for advanced learners.
Until then, keep practicing, keep reading widely, and keep refining your English. Thanks for joining us.
Goodbye for now, and we'll see you in the next lesson. Take care.